This piece is called Fish Plant Rack. It's a piece I made in 2004 as a commission for a show in Barcelona and Madrid called Organismos. And this is one of a series of works I've been making over the last, well, for about a 10-year period, which were looking at how some kind of simple hybrid ecosystem could be formed, which had some kind of organic natural intelligence and some kind of artificial intelligence, and how information and behaviour could be shared between them and what kind of emergent properties would come out of this shared behavioural network. This piece features a fish called the elephant nose fish, which is from the Congo, which has its own form of echolocation, but instead of using sound, it uses electrical impulses. So it sends out a series of electrical impulses, and then it has a special organ in which it receives the response, or the echo. And by sending out various frequencies and rhythms of clicks, it can form a very lucid idea of its environment about that. So what I do, how I use that in this piece is, I kind of interpret that as binary, because a waveform of a click, there's either a pulse or there's not. So I have a series of basically zeros and ones in that sound form, which of course underpins every form of software that there is. The robot is the kind of the artificial kind of colleague of the fish, and is running a quite a sophisticated artificial intelligence system, which is then at the other end of this kind of software scale. And the fish streams the binary code to the robot. And the binary code coming to the fish basically gives us a really good idea about the amount of information the fish is learning and its navigational strategies for the environment it's in. As the robot receives various amounts of binary code, it uses that to either modify its own code or to unlock new forms of behaviour. And the forms of behaviour of the robot is to traverse this rack system, which is mounted with a hydroponic system with 3 plants. And it will take turns to visit each plant and to try various ways to stimulate the plant through reaching out to touch it, through vibrating the whole structure, or through playing various audio frequencies at it, which refers back to various experiments done in the 60s and 70s to see how plant growth would respond to various forms of vibrational stimulus and frequencies. While the robot is carrying out these actions, it's filming the plants to kind of register any kind of change, and then streams that video image back into a screen mounted on on the side of the fish tank, which then provides a constantly updating element to the fish's environment, which will in turn generate new behaviours in the fish, which will complete the loop. So basically, it's an iterative loop of information which cycles through organic, artificial, artificial. Each iteration of the loop, there's new information inserted, so it modifies and modifies and modifies. And the emergent behaviours come out of that constant iteration and modification of the kind of the information nexus, which kind of is situated within in the installation. The process of research, it depends where they started the piece, where it's from the research from the actual building, but the research is an ongoing process anyway. You know, there's various research into how information moves between systems and about AI and about the behaviours of certain animals. And then the work kind of is basically snapshots along certain points of this. But I think actually making the work, maybe 3 months at the most, which for me is quite fast. I mean, it's a simple system. As you can see, there's nothing particularly elaborate about the mounting. I wanted something which looked very much like a DIY garage-style experiment. So in terms of sculpting and manufacturing, it was very, very simple things to make. So it was a quick piece to produce. That doesn't mean it's actually very easy, but it was quite quick.
So there's also fourth element participating in the installation, right? That's you as a human interfering with the system.
Not really, not really. I mean, a lot of my work, a lot of people accuse me of being a post-humanist because I kind of intentionally edit out any kind of human reference in the work that I do. But then, you know, the human as observer, as interpreter, because the work features so many kind of interwoven narratives and lines of questioning that it's impossible, and it doesn't really interest me in making everything completely apparent at the time. So the visitor has to take a very active role as interpreter to try and kind of to read the narratives in the piece and to try and make their own connections, and whether they make the same connections as I intended when I made it or not is, you know, I'm quite easy either way. Really, people kind of invest the time and the thought into the piece to take their own stories away from it. So, you know, that kind of role as human as observer and interpreter, then that's about as close as it gets, really.
Andy, please can you tell us something about your upcoming artworks?
Yeah, well, my work for the last 2 or 3 years has been focused on research into the science of astrobiology, which there is a continuing thread between this idea of using robotic elements as kind of data mining machines, and how about that can then begin to affect kind of the organic world and information systems contained in that. So the interest into astrobiology, and especially the kind of robotic probes that we send out to investigate the planets and the moons for the planets, to investigate the chemistry and the possibilities of biochemistry in these places. So it's kind of, instead of building robots, I'm using ones that have already been made by NASA, who build robots much better than I do, and I'm now finding ways to actually access the information being generated by these things. And I'm using these to then manipulate cultures of organisms which have some kind of association with extreme environments on Earth or with space bioscience already. So there's a piece called Deep Data, which is a long-term project which I'm still developing, which I showed the prototype in the Enter Festival 2 years ago. And another piece I recently made called Proxy, which refers to the Spirit and Opportunity, the 2 Martian rovers which have been on Mars for a few years now, and made all sorts of incredibly important scientific breakthroughs, like proving the past existence of water, things like that. So I made an installation piece with 2 robots that referred to those, which were kind of processing samples of Earth, looking for certain kinds of organisms as well. So there is a kind of continuation in a thread of this, inserting artificialness and robotics and machinic entities into the organic world. But kind of looking at space as the context for that, but then how the things we find out about the wider solar system and how our kind of cognitive boundaries are pushed ever outwards by the information we get from deep into space, how that then affects our own sense of place and sense of being and our own place within some wider organic network that maybe we don't understand yet.
Andy, thank you for the interview.
A pleasure. Thank you.